Welcome to Rio and Friends, where we delve into topics that affect many of us here in the UAE and all around the world. Today, we're going to be delving into a subject that affects us all, mental health and well-being. We have three amazing guests with us here today, all who have unique insights, personal experiences, and professional opinions. So let's get started. I want to hear from you how you got started in the mental health industry and well-being industries. Tell us about who you are, how long you've been in Dubai, and just share.
Okay, so my name is Stephanie Hamilton. I have been in this part of the world for about 3 decades. I'm the mother of 3 children, and I started my journey in the medical field. But one of the biggest things that changed the trajectory of my life was giving birth to my daughter with Down syndrome.
Okay.
And she was later diagnosed with autism, which also shed light on the fact that I have ADHD. It was like a revelation, like, oh wow, I finally feel seen.
That's a lot at once as well, though.
It's a lot. And so I have always worked really in wellness, I would say. So I'm a healer. I help people to plug back into life. I recovered from an autoimmune condition. I had that for 14 years. This all ties in together, of course.
Yeah.
You know, it's all part of it. Everything is, we're not just physical beings, we're multidimensional beings. And so yeah, I've lived most of my life in this part of the world. And I guess one of the biggest things I was really happy about, you inviting me here today is I think mental health, there's so many different aspects to it.
Yeah.
We can look at this from an angle of, special needs. We can look at an angle as, parenting. There's so many different facets to it. Having a neurodivergent, being neurodivergent yourself, it's there's a lot of different things to look at.
Well, I think I am. I definitely know I'm neurospicy, that's for
Neurospicy.
sure. Thank you, Stephanie. And Wafa, tell us more about yourself.
Hello, my name is Wafa Farid, and I'm a general adolescent and adult psychologist. I'm a CBT practitioner, and so I help people with anxiety, depression, grief. But my favorite thing to work with is the self, the problems with the self, like self-worth and self-esteem and self-confidence and stress management, anger management, building resilience, because genuinely, I believe that, of course, life will keep throwing us, with different challenges, etc. Exactly. And the more you have that self-belief in the self and that power within you, and you feel empowered, you will be able to handle things way better than if you're broken inside. So that's what I really like working with.
Agree. And can you just tell us what CBT is for those that don't know what it stands for?
CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's basically dealing with irrational thoughts and replacing them with rational thoughts, things that work for you rather than making you work for them, and causing all those emotional imbalances within. So this is mainly, in a nutshell, what CBT is.
Amazing. Okay. All right. We'll delve more into that later. And Scott, tell us about yourself.
I will do, but you're supposed to be asking the questions, but I'm really curious. Define neurospicy. I don't know what that is.
I don't know if I coined the phrase or if I heard it from someone else, but I just realised that in older age, just certain little things, for example, certain sounds really overwhelm me and affect me.
Oh, wow.
And a highly sensitive person. So a couple of psychiatrists told me you're a HSP person. It's a personality trait.
Right.
So I just call it neurospicy.
I like that. I like that. So I'm Scott Armstrong. I'm the founder of a platform called Mental. which basically is trying to promote open conversations about mental health, tackle the stigma primarily. We do podcasts, we have annual award ceremonies, we work inside organisations and companies because we're going to spend about 40,000 hours of our life at work. So that's a rich seam of mental distress where people really need help. How did I get into this? I mean, you were talking about that kind of light bulb moment, that epiphany for you with the birth of your daughter. It was actually the death of my father that kind of started me on this path. He was a typical 1970s British dad, very successful CEO, never talks about his feelings, very physically strong, very physically fit, but he struggled with depression, and once it took hold, we lost him in 3 months. I mean, he basically drank himself to death. And I kind of remember looking at him in the open casket, you know, at the funeral, and just basically thinking, why couldn't we have this conversation? My child is a bit spicy, but I did have a great adult relationship with him, but we still couldn't talk about it. He couldn't open up to me, and so we lost him. So that kind of like, I don't know, bell goes off inside. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I had, you know, boys in university age, particularly during COVID. My boy was in university during COVID. You see the suicide statistics around young boys, terrifying. The suicide statistics around guys my age as well is also terrifying. So I just kind of thought, time for a change and maybe try and do something about it. Because I was a journalist for like 30 years, so I was a storyteller. And I was like, right, I've got one set of skills. Let's see if we can actually put them to some good.
I think so. You put them to great use.
That was kind of. That was kind of that. And then since I've started it over the last 3 years, I've sort of been on my own journey discovering my mental health and some trauma from the past, which has gone knocking again. So I've gone through the CBT and then done the EMDR as well. Has been that's painful.
You've had that?
But yeah.
Can you tell us what EDMR is? Is it the electro?
No, this is it's the one where you're better. So yeah,
I'm not certified on EMDR yet. I am looking forward to it this year. So it's basically unlocking these traumas and working. I mean, obviously, like, you know,
the way it was explained.
If I'm saying it wrong.
So he explained it to me before they did it, which is like trying to take this thing from, like, so if you have a moment of pain in your past, a moment of trauma from your past, basically what they're trying to do is take it from the short-term processing at and literally stick it in your long-term sort of processing. So it's no longer part of your operating software. And it's almost a bit like self-hypnosis in a way. And they're doing these kind of so they're distracting you with rapid eye movements while getting you to sit in some of the worst images in your entire life. So it is.
So feel it, to really feel it.
It is brutal. It is brutal. But it is then great to kind of come through that and come out the other side, because you do feel like you almost feel like you've got an extra layer of breath that you can access because you've just been so locked up for so long. Sorry, I kind of monopolized that.
No, it's fascinating. I've just recently tried RTT therapy, rapid transformational therapy, which was coined by Marissa Peers, and I'm on my 3rd day of listening to the recordings that she did for me. I kind of just feel like quite chilled, because I have issues with anxiety. So, I mean, it's working so far. That's quite interesting. But you have to do face.
I've done 4 rounds of it. 4 different.
Four
rounds.
She did say it can take up for some
like
people
4
it's
different
up to 1,
topics. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can use it for addiction to food. You can use it for
I
anxiety.
for that.
Because it's not for everyone. Like I said, some people need consistent therapy to talking therapy, talk things through. Other people, that doesn't necessarily work with them, and then especially here it can be costly and things like that. So you've got to find what works for you, right? I guess. And sometimes that might mean trying a few different things, and depends on the state of your mental health.
Exactly. So there's so many modalities out there, as we're like talking about CBT, and there's DBT and EMDR, there's brain spotting, there's so much out there. But it's about what really works and resonates with you. And it's okay. Something might work for you, might not work for the other person.
Exactly.
I think it's all about, for me, there's one common denominator, because I've done probably 30 different modalities.
Things,
and it's the one common denominator is getting connected back into your body. Because disease just means you're simply not at ease in your body.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, I love breaking down words. You're out of ease because you're not connected. And when you have trauma, you're often, I mean, this is what I do in my work, I work with people in the energetic field, like, in their energy field. And people who have trauma, straight away I can feel it because they're disconnected. I see them float, they're like floating beside themselves.
Yeah.
They're actually out of their body. They a lot of people spend most of their day
just floating.
Out of the.
I'm now getting quite self-conscious.
Do I have something floating next to me?
I thought it was just that annoying fly, but...
To make it more grounded, I would say, when you're in shock and people say I was beside myself.
Yeah.
Like, this is where it
interesting.
comes from. It's actually, it's not that you're not present and you're there, but you're actually disconnected.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, I don't know how I feel. A lot of people, you ask them, how do you feel? A lot of people, you probably come across this in your work, Wafa. They might not be able to tell you how they feel.
I get the I don't knows, and I have managed to find my own ways of navigating around the I don't knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who don't really know.
Like that a little bit. Like,
because it's painful to be in your body sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially if if you really, like what you were just saying, Scott, you're doing the EMDR, and it's like all of a sudden you were in your body for that 100 million%.
Yeah.
But it allows you to process and to move on. Right?
Yeah. So Scott, I can relate to you a little bit with the experience with your father. Only my mum is still here, thank God. But in 2016, she tried to take her own life and then continued to try, and she was sectioned into the Mental Health Act. And we just celebrated her 70th birthday with all the people around her, and she's made such a turn. It's so amazing to see. But it made me very aware of my own mental health, and also having a father who's an alcoholic all my life, who, unfortunately hasn't managed to kind of overcome that. It makes you more aware of your own mental health, and you just don't want to go down that path. And do you guys find with yourselves that in your older age, as you've maybe approached your 40s, 50s, sorry if you're younger than 40s, guys, that you really do start understanding yourself better, questioning yourself, seeking help? Is this quite common? Is it quite common with you, with some of your clients?
For that, of course, now with social media, all the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, everyone's so much more aware than what we used to be in their age in our times. So everybody does understand anxiety and depression in not just the basic label sort of a manner. They understand the deeper sense. But of course, when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s, it's very natural in that life developmental stage to reflect on your past and question your present, because where have I reached, etc. Because you want to see yourself somewhere. By that certain age, you have this idea that you want your life to go in a certain way. And so this is when people usually kind of start thinking about it, what has happened, kind of reflecting on their past, contemplating the future. So it's quite common. And it's a natural process of life.
And with women as well, I think perimenopausal as well, menopausal, our hormones are like going into whack, aren't they? And that can affect our mental well-being as well. So I think, again, a lot of women, that's when they discover they may have ADHD, or they may be on the spectrum, because they're like, what's happening? Is it the menopause? Is it... when did you discover you had ADHD?
So my daughter, I told you, has Down syndrome.
Yes.
She was in the Special Olympics in 2019. And she was with other, I know this is sounding like it's going off on a tangent, but it all relates.
It's connected, yeah.
So she was training with 5 other kids that had Down syndrome. And she was always throwing herself down on the mat. And the other moms were saying to me, you need to look at her behavior. And I really felt like I was doing a lot with behavior, and I thought, no, there's something else here. And I had thought about it when she was 5. I'd questioned if she had autism as well as Down syndrome, because it is a condition, DSASD.
Okay.
And I was told by the doctor, no, it's just behavior, whatever, So again, it was just pushed off as behavior, because women learn to mask. This is the thing.
I've heard that.
So her masking skills, when not under extreme stress, were enough that you wouldn't, wasn't always present. So anyway, at this point, it triggered me to go and get the diagnosis or look at it. And she does in fact have DSASD, which was a huge relief. And the psychologist at the time sent me an article and said, you might want to read this. And because she saw me, you know, interacting and how I am. And it was an article on women in masking and being neurodivergent. And I read the article and I just literally started sobbing because it was everything that I identified. Getting kicked out of class. Who gets kicked out of class as a girl in the 70s? Like, you know, no, not in the 70s, but you know what I mean? In the 70s, it wasn't recognized. You were just being naughty.
You just think you're a bad child.
But I was a straight A student.
Yeah.
But I could, you know, I didn't know when to, you know, I would speak out of turn and, you know, all of these things. So many things. And even like, I'm super, you know, people see me as a super confident and very, I think you've touched on this, very outgoing. But to walk into a new room with a bunch of new faces, like, you know, even now I would start to, and people, you know, start to shake and feel like, oh, my body's already reacting, my heart rate's gone quicker, you know, and so these things, and not being able to pick up on jokes, like I'm very, so there's a lot of different things, like humor is an interesting one.
ADHD, don't you? So
so humor is one of them that you don't always get the humor, and it's like,
so God help you around me then.
It just, anyway, there's so many different things, but I read this and I felt seen. I just really, and it just triggered me to go down that path to really pursue and see, like, and so that's really it. And I'm not really one for labels, but at the same time, a label can help you to feel seen and to understand what your needs are. This is the core issue, because women, we often neglect our needs. A lot of us don't know what our needs are. We don't voice what our needs are. And we don't pursue the needs.
I'm interested to hear from a man's perspective.
I'll start with, make you feel psychologically safer. It's not you. My dad jokes are just not funny. I mean, you talked about your dad and you talked about your mother. And it's fascinating because I've got grown-up children. I've got a 24-year-old boy I'm very proud of, an 18-year-old boy I'm very proud of, and I've got a 9-year-old daughter who basically is my entire world, and I do exactly what I'm told. My dad, you know, I'm 52, I'm 53 this year. So there's a clock that's ticking because my dad died when he was 68. So it's like 15 years to go, and I've got, obviously, she's 9 years old, so I need to be there for her. So that kind of changes your perspective a bit. I wish it changed the perspective as much as it should in terms of lifestyle choices, alcohol. You know, my brother, to be fair to him, has completely given up alcohol. I'm currently, like, so at least, like right now, March, I don't drink in March, and I don't drink in August or September. So I always have a fire break, but I'm still not quite to that point yet where I want to step away from it. I've also had an interesting relationship with alcohol all my life because, okay, no easy way of saying it, but and it's kind of come back over the last 2 or 3 years, but I was abused at school when I was 8 years old by a school teacher. And I couldn't open up to my parents at the time. So kind of shame has been my operating system for more than 3.5 decades. And even as an adult, it's been overwork and it's been alcohol that have been the shield. That's been the firewall.
Coping mechanism.
That's the coping mechanism to the trauma. And it's only the last 2 years where I've had to really sit in it. It's come back and sit in memories. So it's changed. I'm more aware of the fact that, as I get older, I should be stepping away from the alcohol. It's not necessarily the thing that's going to work, you know. And I'm now at that point now where I recognize that, you know, even over the Christmas period, I'm not stopping myself. But you get to January or February and you're going, you really do need to, because there's a layer of anxiety. This isn't good for you. You need to, and make sure you've got that fire break. Make sure that it hasn't got hold of you in the same way that it's got hold of your father, because you've got a beautiful 9-year-old girl there, and you need to keep. And I've got another thing is having your own business. As you know, if you're if you've got your own business, there's only so much time that you can actually function at 70%. So there's a lot of things that have changed in my life that mean I've got to do better than my dad. 15 years.
It drives us, and also, you know, it makes us a lot more self-aware, I think. Not everyone. I mean, you're a professional, right? So you have insight clinically, I guess, into why people are the way they are and why they act the way they do and stuff. But I think the key is being self-aware and then finding things that are going to help you navigate those feelings and those experiences, which is where people like you are so important, right?
Yes, and of course, self-awareness, that click has to happen within no one can make it click.
Yeah.
And of course, as a therapist, as a psychologist, I can only help maybe 20%.
Yeah.
That 80% work has to be done by that person within. I can't sit on their shoulder and walk around and follow them every day saying, no, don't think like that. Don't, change your thoughts. Or that's not a good coping mechanism. It has to be done by them. And of course, I can't stress this enough. When you do start the therapy journey, you might feel a little bit better within like a week, and you're so proud of yourself, and that's great. The dopamine's kicking in. It's like, I feel better. I don't need it anymore. Sorry? Yes, exactly. It's like going to the gym. You go to the gym one day, 1 month, January,
and you're
doing
like,
it.
done it.
And it's like, great. I don't need to go to the gym for the next 11 months. It doesn't work like that. So therapy is a journey, and it doesn't always have to be something that you're struggling with from your past. It can be, or in the present even. It's just to collect your thoughts, and people in my field are just there as guides, as these sounding boards who just take what you're giving them. When my mother, who didn't really know what I do, and she was like, what do you actually do? Because, she really didn't have an idea about what psychologists or therapists do. It's basically like, I told her, I said, okay, Mama, this is how it is. Just imagine that there's these bunch of wires and they're all tangled up together. So I don't fix anything. I just simply untangle everything and keep it out nice and clean and tidy in front of them. And then it's up to them how they want to connect
work it out,
It's entirely their thing. So I just, detangle things.
I like that analogy. Yeah, because some people actually need visuals to understand certain things. They need it spelled out. Interesting. So I want to kind of delve, obviously, because most of our viewers that we share are from the expatriate community, they're immigrants. What are some of the unique challenges that us expats face in terms of our mental health and well-being? I know what I've struggled with in the past. A lot of guilt, being far away from family, aging parents, when all the stuff kicked off with my mum. I just had a baby as well, so I felt really torn between my new family, my old family, and where to be. And then I suffered mentally as a result as well, because I was trying to navigate these emotions.
You are that sandwich generation, aren't you? Where you're looking after older parents, but then you've got your own family, and that puts you in a really difficult spot in the middle.
Yeah. So, and a lot of my friends struggle with that as well. Like, a friend recently moved back to kind of take care of her older parent whilst leaving her husband behind and having to uproot her children. And again, she's bearing all of this stress and this pressure and this guilt on both sides. Like, what are some of the unique challenges that have faced you guys as expats that have impacted you, and then professionally as well? Like, what do people come to you with?
I think I'm going to go back to the neurodivergent community on this and say, like, when I gave birth to my daughter with Down syndrome, giving birth in itself, not having your family here, is already a challenge, but giving birth to a child who is different gifts, I would say that that was quite difficult, because there wasn't a lot of support in this part of the world in any way. There was literally next to nothing.
Okay.
So that was quite, there's two parts to this actually, because on a negative side, I think I would say, like, you feel isolated, it was like looking for other people like you so that you could connect. But even though you meet another mother with Down syndrome, she's not having the same experience as you. Doesn't mean just because you both have a baby, you might be having different experiences, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's still nice to find those people. But on a positive side, what I would say is, it's actually a chance to create what you want. So, when we lived here and Ruby was born, and then we moved to New Zealand for 3 years and then moved back. And when we moved back, she was school age, and I tried to get her into school.
Yeah.
We had upwards of 40 rejections. But we ended up being the catalyst for the policy in KHDA that now exists, because of, saying, this is what we need, this is what we want, this is what's happening. Going to government and saying, and actually Dubai was amazing and listened.
And I do love that about Dubai, I have to say. Like, they do listen, and it's a very new city, obviously, and country.
Yeah.
So of course they're not going to be as advanced in certain things as, you know, other countries, but I feel they act fast and
I
they
feel
listen, right?
I also feel like that, yeah, like in that, like I said, like I try to look at what is the gift in this, and it's like the gift in this is that you have a space where you can now create. Like on every step of Ruby's journey, like now she's coming through school. Now I'm looking at, okay, there's no assisted living like there is in the UK or Canada. So now I'm like, okay, well, what do we want? So it's up to myself and other people like me to actually be like, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it will happen.
Where I struggled the most, I think, was in the work, and I think it happened around the same time as my father's death as well. But it was that I went through a couple of real toxic workplaces where you saw, I lived through the impact on me, and I would have considered myself, you know, as a 30-year veteran, a fairly resilient guy.
Yeah.
But so many employees have this idea, you come here, but then we have this amazing lifestyle here. Let's face it, like right now, who wants to go back to the UK? You know, and then we've got our kids here, and our kids are in school, and they're so safe, and they've got all these things they could do, and life here is amazing. But then you walk through the work, you know, through the doors to the office, and your boss is a nightmare, because, and you have that real fear, and it's changing at a government level, but the private sector really needs to catch up.
Yeah.
You have that real fear that, like, if I don't just jump, if he says jump, you have to say how high.
Yeah.
And if I lose my job, then everything goes. And that did really used to be the case. You know, it did. Like, you used to have a month to get out of the country if you lost your job. And the bosses used to have a lot of power. That has changed. But I've been in that situation. I had a boss, like, he called me to his house on Valentine's Day and then told me how much he detested me and the things I said. He would WhatsApp every night, and in the end, like,
Is he all right?
yeah,
All right, mate.
yeah,
If you're watching it.
yeah. No, complete narcissist. Anyway,
I was going to say, it's an art.
but also, like, when WhatsApp went off, it was a physical reaction. Like when I heard the ping, it was like Pavlov's dogs. My entire body would go, ah. It got to the point where I was trying to sleep at night time, and I could see him in the corner of the room in the dark. And eventually, and it literally took my wife to go around going, Scott, this can't go on.
Enough,
you know. And eventually, you then make the decision to start making a change and move out of that, but you know, move through that. And I remember Dr. Celia from the Lighthouse Arabia. She wrote an article about it. So I posted, and I literally said that was my experience. And I posted it on LinkedIn, and that was kind of where the thought for mental first started coming in. Of course, so many people reached out, particularly in middle management roles, going, I thought it was just me. You know, so there's so much stress levels. And you see the government trying to change things. We've got 5-year visas now, we've got 10-year visas. The gratuities are now not in control by the employers. There's unemployment insurance. So the government values talent. We've got a lot of legacy companies that still need to kind of get to that point where they realise, you know, we were talking about that idea of you're lucky to have a job versus we're bloody good at what we do, you're lucky to have us. Yeah, but that's it's a really difficult space, particularly if you've got those kids and you just don't want to, you know, you live your life here.
Yeah.
So there's a fear factor there.
There is always, we're on the edge.
I would
slightly.
also say another thing when you were talking about challenges as an expat. So I left my marriage 2 years ago, and so I'm still actually married because of the visas and the, you know, being on the, I mean, this is a challenge for women who, you know, in Canada, it's no brainer. You just, you know, it's much easier to go through this process than it is here. So I would say that's also a challenge. As an expat, it's not the same as you would find in the UK or Canada. Yeah. You know, it's something, there's a lot of women navigating and staying in situations that they don't, mine's amicable, so it's okay, it's good, but there's a lot of people who are going through that, it's, you know, they're going through some very, very difficult times.
Yeah, but again, as you said, I've noticed some real shifts in legislation and law here, and you know, one of them is with the travel. I think that's going to impact a lot of women in particular, but you know, I mean, there's always things to navigate, isn't there?
Of
you
course.
know, as an expat, and definitely for me, it's the guilt. I think a lot of people struggle with loneliness as well.
Loneliness, of course. I mean, I'm an expat and a psychologist, and I see it from every angle. I see it from my own personal thing. Of course, there's loneliness. There's the lack of that village that you're promised when you give birth. That it's not there. You have to pay one person maybe to help you out. So of course, I have struggled with that isolation when you are just at home, you know, taking care of that one baby, and there's literally no one coming around checking on you. These are the kind of things that you go through as an expat. And of course, looking at it from, you know, what you've been sharing about your parents, etc. I too have that constant fear, not constant, but it's there at the back of my head where it's like, it's going to be a phone call. It's going to be a phone call and I will have to pack my suitcase and rush. Yeah, because my parents are only getting older and we all don't live forever. So it's gonna happen, and when it happens, I'm not gonna be there. Yeah, it's gonna be a phone call. Yeah, and so of course that's a constant worry. But how I try to navigate it from a professional point of view is, instead of saying thought is I am guilty of missing out on, you know, being with family, or I'm not there for my family, to kind of shift your thoughts into saying, I am doing what I need to do best to align, you know, my future. Yeah. And I am, and they're proud of me. Yeah. So you're doing your best, and parents and family is like, of course, they're all watching you from a distance, and you kind of are making them proud because you're trying your best. You're not just here. Dubai, of course, as we're just talking about the jobs and the laws and etc. You can't just
they all think we're sipping champagne on a yacht, living the life of I mean, sometimes, but let's be real.
But they know you're trying your best for your future, for your family, doing what it needs, and they're proud of you. And that's how you're supposed to kind of, you know, realign your thoughts and think of it from that.
It's an interesting one. You talk about that though, with the yachts and the champagne and that sort of thing. Like, how do we blow off the tensions? Because what we forget is we're working bloody hard here in the UAE.
It's got one of the highest rates of
burnout in the world. I write research papers for Cigna because they do a global survey all the time, and you see consistency, like particularly in the workplace, like overall well-being, absolutely fantastic, world leading. As soon as you drill into the workplace, it's like 90% of people struggling with symptoms of burnout and stress. If you look at global GDP, like the UAE is working twice as hard as the G7, the global average, and China. So we are working really hard.
It is a work hard, play hard environment.
It is, and that play hard, how long can you play hard for?
Exactly.
Particularly when you're over 50, it begins to take its toll.
It does. No, I remember the first year I moved to Dubai. Oh my gosh, I'd never partied and worked so hard in my life. And I literally got to the end of that year of burnout. I was so burnt out, but I was younger then, so I had the energy. And that's when I met my husband, and things kind of, I'm not saying like a relationship should anchor you, but it did in a way. Like I just felt a bit more anchored when, a bit more grounded. And that's when I started to explore the different side of Dubai, the more soulful side, less of the parties and this and that, and just work. That's when I really started to fall in love with the UAE and Dubai, actually. So that was a good thing. But I think we've all, at some point, experienced that burnout being here as expats.
And that can happen in your 20s. It can happen at any age. Any age, because human beings are, I do mention this, like we are not supposed to be fueled on coffee. Yeah. That's not how things work.
Really?
Believe it or not, we need nutrition.
Can we cut that?
Hydration.
Water.
And sleep and rest and, you know, just giving self-care like to ourselves and soul. And that's what we're supposed to do. So even if you start, you know, working hard, playing hard in your 20s, it is going to catch up with you and take a toll on you.
Actually, never mind the 20s. I will tell you that there's a lot of children who are burnt out here because the kids here are pushed far beyond what they are in other countries, I feel. Academic, but after school activities, because people have the money to put their kids in 5, 6, 7 activities. There's a lot of kids who don't have a single day.
The money, it's about, I don't know what to do with them. So if I take them at home, they're going to be glued to a screen. I'm at work. Daddy's at work.
Because I noticed this. You know, when you said about burnout, everyone's experienced it. I would say okay, I worked in the hospital years ago here, but I mean, I work for myself, but at the same time, my burnout has come from being a parent, but also being a parent, like actually trying to manage my kids' schedules. Like, and actually now now that they're teenagers, I'm like, well, let's pull right back.
I say it with my daughter as well. Like, she gets to that point where it's like, I'm bored. You usually go, no, right, okay, so you've done so, and she likes Duolingo right now, so we're doing Duolingo together.
Good.
We're learning Japanese together, so I'm really enjoying it.
I love that.
Yeah, it was great, but then it's like, okay, now it's time to put your screen down. No more screen time. You know, we're quite protective on screen time. But then it's I'm bored.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
Creativity.
Yeah.
Imagination.
You know,
Use your imagination.
but then you have to be kind of strong though as a parent to not, because they'll go, I'm bored, I need it. No.
Give in.
Yeah.
You just want a piece.
Okay, so you're bored. You know, you've got the colouring that you can go and do. You can go and play with Lego. You can go and do this. You don't need to be stimulated all the time.
Well, this is a nice segue into, and that was going to be my next question. Like, we're all parents here, right? All of us are parents here. And actually, touching on what you said, I went to go and get assessed for ADHD.
Oh, yes.
So several people around me kept on asking me, do you have ADHD? I think you've got ADHD. Do you? But my instinct was like, I don't think I actually have. I don't think I've got ADHD. But anyway, enough people telling me, so let's go and get assessed. So we got assessed, and he sat there, and at the end of it, put his papers down and looked at me. You don't have ADHD. So you've got a zest for life.
Where precisely was he from?
Yeah.
Indian Birmingham. And he was like, he goes, maybe on the spectrum lower end of the scale, maybe. You're very, like there's certain things, but I don't think you do. Anyway, maybe I do have ADHD because I'm going off a tangent. But no, we started to talk about kids, and he was like, sometimes he would go into people's homes and there would literally be a board with Monday to Sunday, and literally every day there's something. There's no downtime for that child to just be and be bored, you know, and just, you know, there always has to be something. And he says he thinks parents try to compensate a lot because they're working. So they feel like they want to give their child to do something constantly. And that is tough. I've only got one child, so I struggle with that a lot, you know, like I feel like a lot of guilt. And I think it's quite a normal human parental emotion, you know, especially these days when we have to work and we have to, you know, but I think quality time really matters with our kids, and making that count and not being on our phone while we're having that.
I tell my children whenever I'm bored and I might know to answer it, and they know, I know what you're going to say. Boring people get bored.
Bored, yeah. My mum used to tell me that.
Yeah, we've used that one.
Yeah.
That's a solid burn.
It is.
Yeah.
It works.
And I'm like, go be creative. Are you boring?
Yeah, are you bored?
Go be interesting.
I'm not boring.
Go be interesting. Find something to do. Make a comic book.
Yeah.
I don't know. Make a
den.
Exactly. Just do what you want to do. And of course, I am also on the same page with the whole screen time has to be limited, etc. And just let children be without enforcing them into a structure. And I mean, it's 6-7 hours of school anyways, where they have to constantly behave.
Tough.
My son comes back, he goes, Mommy, I'm tired. He does not want to do ASAs, so I don't push it. So there's some things we do, like for example, he goes off with his dad every week and does like outdoor stuff, like boy stuff, right? And swimming and things like that. But I don't push him because he's very much like, Mummy, I come home and I'm tired. It's a long day. I just want to chill.
They're up early as well, school time, which is a nightmare on the traffic. But for her, even just having an extra hour in bed in the morning and not be up at 5:30, 6 a.m.
Yeah. It's striking a balance, isn't it? It's hard. But just as parents, I think us growing up, God, it was so different, wasn't it? I mean, you know, make sure you're back home by the time the sun's down. They didn't even know what we were doing half the time. You know, but these days...
Pretty much all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Like most of the time, we were just left alone. But I think it's really hard to navigate parenthood in this kind of digital age and how that affects our mental health, our children's mental health. And I found when I had a child, that really... Did it trigger a lot of stuff emotionally for you? because it really did for me when I had a child. I had a child, and I was like, oh, I would never do what my mother did or to this child. Like, it just made me start thinking about how I grew up and how can you know, and then just being very conscious of messing up my child.
I'm very, and me and I'm just like complete rollover, but I get very triggered about, you know, like trying to stay away from shouting, because I grew up in a very angry household, which is one of the reasons why I couldn't report the abuse that happened to me. And then in the end ended up homeless and on the streets when I was a teenager. So I'm very much like, this needs to be a safe space. Yes, there needs to be, you know, there needs to be a level of discipline, but even saying that to me seems like too hard a word. But there needs to be accountability maybe as children. Absolutely. But even just that shouting and that fear. I grew up in a very fearful environment, and I know what impact that had on me. Still has. You know, I'm still very conflict avoidant. You know, I don't like getting into arguments.
But if you see yourself or feel yourself feeling that emotion, you catch yourself and you're like, nope.
Yeah. And so I'm constantly trying to shield, particularly my daughter, from that, just to make sure that she can always talk, she can always ask for help, you know, rather than
have a safe space.
Whereas it was children should be seen and not heard. Yeah. You know,
totally.
Not for everyone,
I can relate to you. Yeah.
So many different upbringings, and it's pretty much the same thing.
No, I can really relate to you because I mean, I grew up in the eldest of 6 kids.
Oh wow.
My father was arrested in my teens for domestic abuse. We also had 6 elderly people in our home that we cared for. This is not normal in Canada in the 70s and 80s, by the way. Yeah. So it was and for me, when I had
chaotic probably.
Yeah, and when you talk about shouting, I still am working on that. Like I haven't, because it just was in, you know, and I'll say I shout when my nervous system is out of whack. Yeah. But now I feel like, and I think like what I would relate to you in the fact that we're all trying to, at least we're taking one step better than what we had, right?
Exactly.
Like I look at my parents, I have compassion for them because I know, like I've gone through so much healing with this, you know, and I know what they came from. So it's like, you know, that saying, when you know better, you do better. And it's like, just knowing better is already enough. Like I might like my teenager will say, you shout at us all the time. And I'm like, and I say to her, I do, and I'm sorry. And it's wrong.
Accountability is so important.
But I say, I'm explaining to her, I say, my nervous system, like I feel like you're coming at me so much that I can't, my nervous system needs some space. And that's why I'm shouting at you. So I can explain it to her, whereas my mother could never do that.
You wouldn't understand.
My mother could never do that.
She wouldn't verbalize it.
So I think like, when you come to a space of, when you know better, it's like, as long as we're trying to do better and we know, we're aware. I think this is a big part of it too.
I've explained that to my kids as well, that when I do shout, it's mainly out of fear. Because they've climbed something and I feel they're just gonna fall down and break their heads. And that comes from this fear of get down.
Yeah. That's great. If that emergency broadcast system is literally reserved for the emergency broadcast system, rather than you have to do exactly what I say.
No, so that's me sometimes still now. I'm sometimes on that default program when I get frustrated. I'm sometimes on that and I'm like, you know, I'll be like, if you don't do this, then this is gonna happen. And she's like,
you take
do you hear yourself? I'm like, actually, I do.
Yeah.
Time for a break.
It feels like, you know, with my boys and my girl, like it's like you're trying to break the cycle. Yeah. Do you know, like almost like it ends with us. You know, like literally. Yeah. So I want my children to, you know, I want to be the grandparent that's going to be, so we can start building a healthy family tree moving forward, rather than, and you're right. Yeah, did they know any better? I think they probably could have done a bit better, to be fair. But we are that first generation who actually think about our kids. You know, we literally see, not heard.
That awareness was there. Like I can say, like I could say my parents, like, I really do feel in some ways. Like my mom was brought up, you know, my mom was abandoned by her father, and then he went and remarried in the same city. He gave my mom to his mom to raise, but then he went and married someone else. So imagine feeling like you're in the same, you know, and there was a lot of abuse there. My mom was abused by one of her uncles. You know, there's a lot of things. And my dad, I don't even know what happened with him. Like, no, I still, you know, but I just know that his dad was an alcoholic. His mom was the one who did all the work. Yeah. You know, Anyway, I feel like that they just didn't have that language and that awareness that we have now.
I don't think they did.
Yeah, I really honestly
in
do
searching
feel that.
within myself and learning more about myself and my own mental health, I've had to learn more about my parents' past and why they are the way they are, which has led me to being a lot more compassionate.
Yes.
And understanding, even though I've decided to, and this is another topic that maybe I'll talk about one day on We Share, if any of you viewers can relate. It's quite controversial, but it's disownership of a parent. I had to do that with my father. And some people thought I was just an evil witch for doing it. And I was like, no, I'm doing it to protect my sanity, my mental health, and my child and my family unit, because this is really affecting me now. But in that decision, I decided to really research and understand his upbringing. Because I had so many questions. I was like, why is he the way he is? Like, I need to understand. And now I know, won't go into it in case any family members are watching, but now I know the reasons. I have more compassion. I actually feel sorry for him. Like, I just want to hug that little boy that he was, do you know what I mean? And give him the care and love that he probably needed. So it's kind of opened doors again a little bit but like you said earlier, he needs to do the work and take that step, and he hasn't done that yet, and that's hard for me.
That disownership, I did that I don't know how many times. I mean, moving to Saudi Arabia when I was 23 in 1996, that was a big, like, see you later.
That feels like a statement.
Do we feel that many of us
was,
move away from family so far for a reason? Like, I feel like that's quite a common thing.
I wouldn't say that was my one of my biggest reasons for moving was to travel and have adventure. But it was kind of like it was a silver lining of like, okay, now I don't have to deal with any of the, conflict in the family. Like, I'm away from that now. Yeah. But it wasn't the main reason, but
no,
I kind of feel like
part of it, because it brings us down when we're surrounded by that negativity and that, and I feel that's one reason why I wanted to move to a different country as well. It's because I just always felt a bit like a black sheep.
Yeah.
Like, different. I wanted bigger things, better things. I love the world. I'm interested in people, and I don't want to be kept down. And this procrastination, do you think that stems from a fear of rejection or not feeling sort of good enough, or fear of failure maybe?
I don't think it's failure. I think it's so much of rejection, judgment. It's that insecurity. I know I've sat with therapists and broken down, literally in tears when I read this day, you feel useless. Like, my operating system is that I'm absolutely useless. And I'm still in that thing where, in theory, I know I have value in the world, but it's feeling it there that you actually can own it. I've done many things in my life, so many good things in my life, but it always feels like somebody else did them. So it's probably still that fear of rejection. It's still that little boy, that 8-year-old kid, or even younger, that just wanted some approval and never got it, which sounds maybe cliche, but
Honestly, I think there's a lot to be said for our childhood. Definitely shapes and forms a lot of our self-belief and our opinions and stuff like that. But with the RTT therapy that I was doing, I mean, she very much taught me that's my voice as a child. I am now an adult. I reframe, and I can tell that child different now, because I can rationalize things, whereas as a child we couldn't, could we? We didn't know why things happened, or all that sort of stuff. I find it really fascinating, You've got a great job. So we're coming towards the end now, and I would love to know that if you were to give yourself, and this is a very cheesy question that has to be asked, like, if you were to give your younger self some advice on how to navigate your mental health, or things that you can do, to protect yourself a little bit, what would that be?
Oh my God, after all the knowledge that I have now, I would be like,
To them.
I would tell my younger self so much. I mean, as simple as I knew I was worrying a lot, but I didn't know I had anxiety growing up. So that I didn't even understand that word, as to what it meant or what its value was, or etc. But So as simple as that, to understand, oh, I have anxiety. This is how, that's the way I'm wired, and I need to now manage it in this way. These should be the healthy coping mechanisms, and this is something that it's not working for me, so I should avoid that. I mean, of course, I would tell myself all those little tips and tricks, and understand exactly what was going on.
Scott, yourself, what would you tell your younger self if you could?
2 things. Be aware that when you shave your hair off, it's not going to grow back. But mostly I'd probably tell him, you're not to blame, it's not your fault. Which is something I'm still working with, but yeah, I would be telling that kid, it's not your fault.
Yeah. Don't get me going. Cry.
Yeah.
And yourself?
So I would say it's okay to be in the dark,
Yeah.
because the darkness shapes the light. Without the dark, you can't see the light.
Yeah.
It's okay to go through those things and not try to push them out. And also stop trying to fit in. Just actually accept and embrace your
Who you
uniqueness. And I know it's cliche, but in a way, stop trying to fit in, because that's where, for me, the depression has come whenever I haven't been true to myself.
Yeah.
So again, disconnected from myself.
Great, I'm talking about going bold, you sound like you.
It's the truth. The bit about you being bald, of course.
Well, I wish I was taught that if I did shave, if I did not shave, it would grow back thicker or whatever it is for us women. Women hell.
But yeah, I would have had laser done.
Yeah. But I think mine would be speak up. Talk. Yeah. Tell someone.
That's powerful. And we have to give this exact thing. I know we can't go back in time, but we can definitely pass this knowledge on to our children, who would hopefully, add more of their experiences, etc., and then pass it on to our grandchildren, hopefully.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love, when I used to get anxiety whenever my son would perform at school, because I know that he doesn't particularly like it, or he acts a bit different to everyone else. Now I love it. When he's on stage and everyone's like to the book and he's there just going, like doing all these things on stage, and I'm like, I embrace it. Or when he does speak up and tell his truth at the age of 8, and he's like, actually, no, I don't agree with that. I'm like, yes, I'm doing something right.
This generation is so good at that.
Yeah.
They really are. You can't get away with anything. They like anything.
He said to me the other day, I was like, I'm going to
call
spank
you up.
your butt and throw you in the as a joke. Don't beat my child. And he was like, well, I would report you for child abuse. Like that. He was very like, they know, don't they? They know their rights.
Yesterday, my son told me and his father to get off our phones. And I was like, but I am booking our holiday. I'm just checking our holiday for the summer. And my husband was like, and I'm paying the car insurance. He's like, I don't care.
Get off.
That's another time. Do it another time.
Yeah. Good for your child.
It's good, yeah.
Even though you were doing it in the right context.
I don't have any social media on my phone, nothing. And so, of course, when I'm on my phone, it's important stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, I still got told off. Get off the phone.
Doing something right.
Yeah.
Doing something right.
So I think we'll end that with, even though we're living in a very kind of crazy digital social media age, there is definitely hope for the younger generation who are more awake to their mental well-being and their health, and to us as parents who are more accountable and self-aware. And hopefully that's going to be a shift of the change for the better. And I would like to thank you all for coming on Rio Friends today. I hope you found it insightful and we've made some new connections and we can be friends on Instagram now. But yeah, does anyone want to leave with anything, or? This was good.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Yeah.
You're very, very welcome.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, all of you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So we will see you again on the next Rio and Friends. If you've got any comments or things you would like to post down below, please do. Make sure you like and share. Until next time, God bless.